The diplomatic chamber aboard the Galactic Council's flagship Harmonious Unity hummed with the collective disdain of 1,000 species. Melissa Chen, Earth's ambassador, stood alone at the central podium, her dark eyes scanning the amphitheater of alien delegates who had already made their decision. "The vote is concluded," announced Archon Velther, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's bioluminescent light into sharp, judgmental rainbows. By a majority of 947 to 3, the Galactic Council has determined that humanity's application for membership is declined. Melissa didn't flinch. She'd expected this. Behind her, Daniel Rodriguez, her military liaison and the only other human in the chamber, shifted his weight slightly. She could feel his tension without looking back. "Might I inquire," Melissa said calmly, "about the reasoning?" A chittering sound erupted from the Zendari delegation, their equivalent of derisive laughter. Ambassador Klex, a mantis-like being from the outer reaches, rose on his 6 legs. "Your species is too volatile," Klex declared, mandibles clicking with each syllable. "Too aggressive, too individualistic. You've barely achieved faster-than-light travel, and already you presume to stand among civilizations that have maintained peace for 50,000 years. Peace built on what foundation?" Daniel muttered behind her, just loud enough for the translation matrices to catch. Archon Velther's facets glowed brighter, anger, perhaps, or maybe just satisfaction. "You have contributed nothing to galactic civilization. Your technology is primitive. Your culture is fragmented. Your wars are legendary in their brutality. Why should we allow such a species into our enlightened assembly?" Melissa's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I see. Then we'll accept the Council's decision with grace." The chamber fell silent. They'd expected protests, demands, perhaps even threats. That was the human way, wasn't it? Aggression when cornered. "However," Melissa continued, tapping her datapad, "I do need to formally notify the Council of certain economic realities. As of this moment, Earth is withdrawing all humanitarian aid programs to Council member worlds. The medical supplies we've been providing to the Keldan plague worlds discontinued. The agricultural dome sustaining the Prithian colonies in the dead zone will be dismantling those within the standard cycle." "You dare," Klex began. "Additionally," Melissa's voice carried across the chamber like steel wrapped in silk, "all human-manufactured quantum processors will no longer be available for export. I understand 70% of Council vessels rely on our Q7 series for their faster-than-light calculations, but I'm sure your own manufacturers can fill the gap. Eventually." Daniel stepped forward, his military dress uniform immaculate, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. "Also, the defense grid we installed around the refuge worlds, the one that's been keeping the Void Collective at bay for the past 3 years, we'll be taking that with us. You understand, of course. No membership, no military cooperation." The chamber erupted. Delegates began shouting in 100 different languages, the translation matrices struggling to keep up with the chaos. Archon Velther's form pulsed with agitated colors. "This is extortion." "No," Melissa corrected, her voice cutting through the noise. "This is business. You've decided we're not worthy of joining your club. That's your prerogative, but you don't get to enjoy the benefits of association without the actual association." She began walking toward the exit, Daniel falling into step beside her. As they reached the massive doors, Melissa paused and looked back. "Oh, and one more thing. That star system you've been eyeing in Sector 447, the one rich in exotic matter. Humanity claimed it 3 months ago. We've already begun mining operations. It's outside Council space, so no laws were broken. We just thought you should know." The doors sealed behind them with a hiss of pressurized atmosphere. 6 months later, Daniel stood on the observation deck of the Exodus, humanity's first true deep space colony ship. Beside him, Melissa reviewed reports on her datapad, her expression unreadable. They're panicking, Daniel observed, watching the stars streak past as the ship accelerated toward the galactic rim. 12 different delegations have requested emergency meetings in the past week alone. 13, Melissa corrected without looking up. The Vorlaxians just sent another one. Apparently, their civilian fleet's navigation systems are failing. 90% of them used our processors. Daniel chuckled, a dark sound in the quiet observation deck. Couldn't happen to a nicer species. They were the loudest voices calling us barbaric. Behind them, a holographic display flickered to life, showing Ambassador Klex's insectoid face. The mantis being looked haggard, his usually pristine carapace dulled. Ambassador Chen, Klex began, his translator capturing the strain in his clicking speech. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I am authorized to reopen discussions regarding Earth's membership application. Melissa finally looked up, her expression mild. How kind. Unfortunately, we're no longer interested. But you had your chance to work with humanity as equals, Daniel interjected, stepping into the hologram's view. You chose to treat us as inferior. We've learned that lesson well. We don't need you. The Void Collective is expanding, Klex said urgently. Without your defense grids, 3 more worlds have fallen. The death toll is tragic, Melissa agreed, but no longer our responsibility. You made that clear when you rejected our membership. We can reconsider. The vote can be held again. Ambassador Klex, Melissa's voice dropped to just above a whisper, but it carried the weight of finality. Humanity spent 2 centuries trying to prove ourselves worthy of your attention. We shared our medicine, our technology, our innovations. We asked only for a seat at the table. You laughed at us. She stood, walking closer to the hologram. So we're doing what humans do best when faced with a closed door. We're finding another way. There are 100 billion unexplored stars beyond Council space, resources you've never touched, worlds you've never dreamed of, and we're going to claim them. This is madness, Klex's mandibles clacked frantically. No species survives alone in the deep galaxy. The dangers are for us to face, Daniel finished. Humans have always been good at surviving the impossible. We're apex predators from a death world, remember. That's what you called Earth, a planet that should have killed us 1,000 times over. Instead, it made us strong. Melissa returned to her datapad. If there's nothing else, Ambassador, we have a colony to establish. The Council knows how to reach us if you ever decide to approach us as equals rather than supplicants. Until then, humanity is walking its own path. Wait, Klex's voice cracked through the translator. At least tell me where you're going, if something happens. If something happens, Melissa said softly, we'll handle it ourselves. Goodbye, Ambassador. The hologram died. 3 years later, the Galactic Council chamber was half empty. Trade routes had collapsed without human logistics coordination. The Void Collective had consumed 17 Council worlds, their advance unchecked without the human-designed defense systems. Medical crises swept through a dozen species as stockpiles of human pharmaceuticals ran out. Archon Velther stood before the remaining delegates, his crystalline form dimmed with what might have been shame. We have received a transmission, he announced, from the human colony at the galactic rim. The message played. Melissa appeared, older now, her hair streaked with gray. Behind her, through a viewport, a thriving metropolis glittered against an alien sky. Daniel stood beside her, grinning. Greetings from New Terra, Melissa said. Humanity has established 47 colonies in the past 3 years. We've made contact with 6 species you never knew existed. We've developed new technologies, new medicines, new forms of art and culture. We've faced dangers you couldn't imagine, and we've thrived. She paused, her expression softening slightly. We bear no grudge against the Council. You made the choice you thought was right. But we've learned something important out here in the darkness. We don't need your approval to be extraordinary. We never did. If you ever decide you want to work with humanity as equals, as true partners, you know where to find us. Until then, we'll be out here, exploring, growing, becoming something greater than either of us imagined. The message ended. In the silence that followed, a single delegate, a young Prithian barely old enough to hold office, stood hesitantly. Perhaps, she said quietly, we were the ones who weren't ready for humanity. Archon Velthor said nothing. In the depths of space, humanity grinned and kept walking.